Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
I saw Atomic Blonde. Now, this is a movie that has some interesting trivia with it. Charlize Theron cracked 2 teeth while filming. Ooh. James McAvoy broke his hand on the set of Split and had to do all his action scenes with an injured hand. And Charlize Theron had 8 personal trainers to help her master her intensely physical performance.
God, I would love that. I would love to just have
eight physical trainers.
Just a team.
Trainers, yeah.
Like, this is my kick guy. This is my roll.
This is the guy to take the cupcake out of my hand.
This is the guy just slaps the cupcake out of my hand. This is Johnny Protein.
Right.
Who just gets me protein.
So, because I'm sure they each had their specialties.
Yeah.
It's based on the graphic novel from 2012 called The Coldest City, which revolves around a spy who has to find a list of double agents who are being smuggled into the West. So, here's the thing about this movie. I was excited to see it. Our state of affairs for action movies is not great. We have Transformers. Basically, our action movies now are superhero movies, which are good. But, this whole kind of genre of action movies without superheroes, we haven't really gotten great ones. I mean, overseas, they're doing some interesting things. I mean, as we saw in the Kung Fu Movie Extravaganza panel, everything from Villainous to, some of the other ones that Rick Myers was showing us.
Or The Raid.
Like The Raid is a great example. We get John Wick, which is cool. And this was actually directed by one of the directors of John Wick, David Leitch. It's his first solo credit as director. Now, this movie was a mixed bag. Like, since it was based on a graphic novel, as it was put together and the story is like kind of progressing, like, there's double agents, there's double crossing. I felt like at some point I was missing some pages of the graphic novel. Like I was like, well, wait, what's going on here? What whose side are you on? Are you the double? It felt like narratively, there were some things missing. Like, it wasn't put together as a whole as well as it could have been. However, that being said, there were some fantastic action sequences in this movie. Like, there's one action sequence on a stairwell that looked unbelievable, and it was just Charlize Theron and 2 guys, 2 Russian spies, and they're fighting. But it's on a concrete staircase, or a metal staircase, and they're falling down it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, even if they're padded up under their clothing, there's no way no one's getting bruises or hurt.
That's how she chipped her teeth. It must have been on one of those stairs.
It had to be, because I'm watching it as like, there's no computer effects here. These are actual people falling down these stairs and getting punched and kicked and doing these things. So when the action becomes grounded like that, it's really exciting. And it didn't do quick cuts. It didn't do those extreme close-ups.
So you knew who was fighting who.
Yeah, you knew who was fighting who, and you saw people literally fall down the stairs. So it was one of those things where, those are the scenes that I want to see more of. Practical action, great stuntmen doing what they do best, and there was some really cool things like that in the movie, but there was also it was slow to get started. It was almost like they were figuring out how to make an action movie as they went along, because it started picking up as the movie progressed. So it kind of had a bit of a slow beginning. So it was a mixed bag, but it's worth it just to see some of the action sequences. And Charlize Theron, she is kick-ass. She's really good. And like I said, the action is really fun. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of everything, more of those more practical action sequences. We all see the car chases. I get it. They're great and they're fun. But like ones like that, just where you have a couple people fighting in these closed environments that are just really well choreographed, that's what action movies are all about.
Well, let me ask you this. So the budget on it was $30 million, which is
moderate.
That's almost low in the action world, because
it's low in the action world.
Because action world,
sure.
You've got car explosions and whatever else. And fight choreography takes a long time to shoot. Yeah. So you're adding on shoot days. Mm-hmm. You've also got an A-list star.
Yes.
Who's going to get whatever money.
She may not have gotten. She might have deferred some of her salary or whatever.
Back end or whatever.
Yeah.
So
because she's the one that wanted to try to get it made. She spent 5 years developing the project. Anthony Johnston and Sam Hart did the graphic novel, and she said that the success of Mad Max Fury Road helped guide the development of Atomic Blonde, because then that proved she was an actor. She could do action.
Well, that I love. I mean, I love. Obviously, we all love Mad Max, and it was her film, and that was so great.
Right.
And I'm glad that like
she had both arms in this one.
I'm glad that like okay, so now no one's questioning is Charlize Theron an action lead,
right?
You know,
Aeon Flux didn't convince them.
That one didn't convince anybody.
I mean, I bet she wishes it had, because I'm sure these stunts would have all been easier to do, 10, 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I know. Aeon Flux was like, that was such a misfire on so many levels.
Based on this weird avant-garde sci-fi cartoon on MTV.
On MTV.
Yeah.
That would just come on in between.
Right, like little vignettes of 2 or 3 minutes at a time, and then they made this live-action feature film. So
they're better off doing The Head.
Yeah, I remember The Head. Yeah,
but let me get back to that though. So the $30 million,
it was well spent.
Well spent.
Yes,
really cool.
Yeah, and now to put it in perspective of the $30 million, every dollar of that is on screen. You could tell. Now, would they? But here's the thing about a movie like this too: would a bigger budget would have helped? I don't think it would have.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I think that's where action movies need to live, is in the 30 to 50 million range, because I've seen so many of these 100-some million ones, and then there's no story.
It's just explosions.
It's just explosions and CG and airplanes and all this other crazy...
And people running through gunfire, and they'll never get hit.
Right, and you're doing some shit that, flying a jet through a thing, and it's like that could never happen. Like you say...
Upside down.
Yeah. It's like... You either need to go full tilt mockery like the Fast and the Furious movies and just have a submarine.
Tongue in cheek, yeah.
Or because for $30 million, you have to have good fight choreography.
Yes.
You have to have, and as you say, rooted in reality.
Right. And that's one of the other things I really liked about this movie is she gets her ass kicked.
Right.
Like you could see from the trailers too. When she takes a punch, she takes a hit. Like, she's not indestructible. Like, you could argue that some of the James Bond movies or some of these other ones, like, they're bulletproof and they they never get hurt on a punch or anything. Whereas Charlize Theron, every hit, you could see her feel it. And then, you saw her, putting her whole body in ice in a bathtub, just because, she didn't necessarily get out of a fight unscathed, even if she may have won. So...
It's not Tom and Jerry violence,
right? It's not Tom and Jerry violence.
They cut your tail off, and next scene it's there.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like I said, it was a mixed bag. I think the script and the directing, as far as the story goes, could have used a little more work, but the action was fun. There were, like I said, the really grounded action sequences were the best action sequences. It had pretty much everything a spy thriller has. It has, double agents, hand-to-hand fighting, car chases, and gunfights.
Right.
So, every element was there. It just didn't quite coalesce as well as I would have liked to, like the whole, as far as being the, larger than the sum of its parts. It wasn't. But there's some such great things in it. It's worth seeing for for the pieces.
Yeah, and it was shot in Budapest, Hungary, which also, to me, goes back to the smaller $30 million budget thing. It's more rooted in the story and the reality of it versus these $150 million ones. They shoot it in some glamorous, and Jason Statham is
some palace.
Yeah, is fighting at a palace, and then there's a fight at a $1 billion resort, and then the helicopter.
There's 100 Ferraris.
Yeah, exactly. There's a Ferrari chase, and they blow them up, and that's that was a $500,000 shoot day. And
because the other thing that this movie gets credit for too is it was also a period piece. I mean, for $30 million, you also had to have action and set in the 80s. So you have cars, clothes, everything else. That
Cold War.
Yep, Cold War, the Berlin Wall. So the movie's a mixed bag, but I do recommend seeing it, especially for the specifically for Charlize Theron and the some of the really cool grounded action sequences.
Okay.
Shot first, kitten heads across the land.